Okay, you're alive.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call our March meeting to order. We have 4 sets of minutes. We have minutes for our planning retreat, the 20th and the 21st, our regular town council meeting, and a special call. So let's take them one at a time. Could we have the minutes of the January 20th planning retreat? Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second set is the following day, the 21st. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And our regular town council meeting on February the 2nd. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, there's a typographical error on page 5 in the middle of in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. It says it says more contiguous variants of the coronavirus have been discovered. It should be more contagious. CONTAGIOUS. Just a simple typographical error. I suspect autospell got it.
Okay. Duly noted. Okay, with that change. Any other discussion? Any other changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then our special call meeting on the 9th. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Petra, you do a remarkable job. Those planning minutes are very, very well done. That was a lot of discussion to put together. So thank you very, very much. Mayor's report, mayor's update. 2 of the items that I was going to talk about, we are going to talk about later on in the agenda. We've been spending some time on, and that's comments for this March 8th Planning Commission meeting. And then the work that's that we'll talk about here more about in terms of the LS3P concept and program planning. But those 2 are on the agenda, so we'll be talking about those. 2 other meetings that will be coming up that I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention. I received a note from John Zolgar. And I think I talked about him at the retreat. Mr. Zolgar is the chairperson of the Johns Island Task Force.
Mhm.
He asked if he could come to one of our town council meetings and give us an update, tell us about what his task force is doing, what they're working on and the like. Because this meeting is virtual, the April the 6th meeting, I'm hoping, all things being equal, that we'll be able to meet in council chambers. But anyway, I've invited him to the April the 6th meeting. So that'll be an important meeting. I think that'll be, it'll really be interesting for all of you, for all of us to hear what he's doing, what he's working on in terms of zoning, development, their support, opposition to, issues going on in Johns Island. So anyway, I wanted to mention that to you. And secondly, John Gregg is the mayor of Seabrook. I've not met Mr. Gregg, and we have invited him to come Friday to meet with us, Dan and I and Stephanie, John Taylor, Charlie, and Paul Roberts to meet, but equally to talk about roads. And more specifically, Paul will be giving a presentation, or his presentation, a PowerPoint presentation relative to the alternatives that we've all talked about on these roads, this road situation in Johns Island. So those will be 2 meetings that will be coming up over the next month, and be able to report back on that. So that's really all I had in terms of mayor's update. Citizen comments. Stephanie, do you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a citizen comment that came in. Mr. Scott Nelson, if it's okay, I'll read it. You all should receive a copy, but I'll read it for the minutes. It said he had 2 comments, which are items on the agenda. He said, I would like to comment in favor of the extension of the mask covering ordinance. Infections are still at a high level. Vaccinations for most visitors are not yet available, and the science on transmission of the virus, despite vaccination, especially for the new variants, is still unknown. And then the second comment is in regards to the discussion item B that's on new agenda. With regards to the Sea Island Golf miniature golf course proposed next door. He said, I would also like to comment to oppose the zoning change to permit a putt-putt golf course on Betsy Kirsten Parkway. It is contrary to the general character of the road and only encourages further development in the face of our road's inability to handle further congestion. Thank you, Scott Nelson. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. As a matter of fact, now, are those read in, those are in the minutes? Those will be in the minutes, so we'll have those memorialized?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. By me reading them, Petra will officially have them as part of the minutes.
okay. So Mr. Nelson, those are just comments. There wasn't, I don't think I heard a question in any of that.
That's correct. Those were his comments.
Okay, we have 2 points of old business, specifically 2 second and final readings. The first is on this land use planning and zoning. We've had a couple of discussions about that. This whole issue of the mobile homes. We need a motion to approve I guess I'm asking.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion relative to this ordinance? Because once we vote on it, it now becomes final.
I have a question. If we vote to approve this ordinance, does our temporary one automatically go away?
Yes, the way that it was set up was that this one, the temporary one expired today after this one is approved.
Okay, thank you.
And we're talking about the same one, yes.
I'm sorry, what are we talking about? Because I thought what was on the agenda was about the building base elevations, not about the mobile homes, because we'd already dealt with that in a second reading.
Yes, we did. We dealt with that in the second reading, but the way that it was set up, I'm thinking if this is the right one, the way that we had set up the temporary one was that it expired today. You weren't here at the last meeting, I think, Dr. Parker. So is that correct, Joe? I can't find it.
No, I was at the last meeting, which was the special called meeting, just specifically to have the second reading of that ordinance.
Oh, just a second. Joe?
Yes, this is about the
mobile home one. I just can't find it in my book. I'm sorry, under tab 5. Let me go to tab 5. Okay. Nope, that's not it. It says tab 5, ordinance to amend, but it's not my tab 5. I don't have it in my book, so, but Joe, do you have that one? Is Joe still here?
Yeah.
God, you're correct. I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is about lowering of base flood elevations.
For the homes.
Yeah.
Was it?
This had to do with the temporary one that we had to put in place for FEMA that I think expired
Right.
today.
Oh,
So
right,
this
right,
new
right.
one automatically kicked in. Was that correct? I just don't have my temporary one in front of me.
No, that's not what Dr. Parker is asking. This ordinance is that we're doing the second reading on. If you look at tab 5 in the material sent out, it has to do with the FEMA's rate lowering the elevation.
Right, I understand that.
Not mobile homes.
Not mobile homes.
Yes, yeah, I understand that.
But it was the mobile home ordinance that we had to,
Triggered this. Was that correct, Joe? I'm getting
No.
confused.
No.
Okay,
This had to do with the flood maps.
Right.
we have, yeah.
It includes definitions of the manufactured homes and home part.
correct. But I was thinking though, Joe, when we did the temporary one, remember we did the temporary one that was going to expire today?
And that's what I'm trying to find.
And a temporary one that we put in was to allow, so that FEMA could basically say, okay, we're going to go ahead and lift the suspension until your permanent one is adopted in second reading, which happens today.
No, did we not? I'm sorry, did we not adopt on second reading about mobile homes on February the 9th? Is not what those minutes reflect? That was the second reading?
I think you're right.
Yeah, because this one that's in this tab 5 has nothing about mobile homes in it at all. It's about the,
Okay, it has nothing to do with the manufactured homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does add definitions of the manufactured homes here. And home
Where,
park.
not in
no, it
this.
doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's all about the new definition of the base building height elevation.
Well, okay.
which
Oh,
had
I
to
see.
do
That's
with
the
mobile
minutes.
homes.
That's the minutes. Sorry about that. Okay.
I'm fairly certain that temporary one expired the day we had the second reading.
It did. It did.
On
We
the
had it
9th
set
of
up that
February.
expired the day that we had the second reading.
Yeah,
And I guess I don't have, and I think the second reading was it on February 9th when we had the special counsel
Yes, ma'am.
reading? So that would have been when the temporary one would have expired,
yeah.
which was, yeah, it's in the minutes for February 9th. It's under new business. That was the second and final reading. That's that one with regards to FEMA.
Mhm.
So this just has to deal with the planning, that the planning commission, when they approved the zoning change of the base the base building height elevation that Bruce presented, that went before the planning commission, they had made recommendation to approve this, and this is what we're considering today is a second and final reading for the changes in the zoning ordinance for base building height elevation. So those are two separate things.
I'm
In
confused.
that case, I make a motion to
Hold on one
approve
second,
this.
Scott.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize. But it's all ordinance 2021-01, isn't it?
These are two separate ordinances, Mayor. The one ordinance that we dealt with regards to FEMA, the suspension, we had second and final reading on that at the February 9th meeting. That's a special call meeting.
Right.
And so now what we're doing is approving what the planning commission had. And that was a different ordinance. That was ordinance 2021-04. And it was different sections. And so now what we're doing is we're looking at the zoning ordinance and we're making, this is second reading of the changes to the zoning ordinance to include the base building height elevation, which this is completely different matter than what we dealt with regards to the FEMA suspension. That was in the floodplain management ordinance that we had to change for FEMA. This change is in the zoning ordinance.
I think that's correct.
So
Okay.
this is
I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
2021-01.
It's the changes in the zoning ordinance. The
Right.
one that we approved in February was changes to the floodplain management ordinance.
So I'm just verifying this is the one we're looking at now, the 01.
Right.
Okay.
Well, are we all set?
Yeah.
He asks.
So I second Dr. Parker's motion.
Right. So we can vote.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I thought that was the easy one. This would be the one,
It may have been.
2021-03. We're going to get an explanation of this from Joe based upon what's taken place from the governor on Friday. But as I understand it, we need a motion to approve this ordinance. Since this is the second and final reading of this ordinance, then during discussion, then Joe will describe the suggested changes. So can I have a motion to approve 2021-03?
So
I
moved.
so move.
Okay,
I
so
second.
discussion. Joe, you want to take it?
Yeah, so Just late last night, it had been previously announced, but late last night, the governor published his latest executive order. The big changes relevant to us were that he lifted the curfew, the 11 p.m. curfew for serving alcohol at restaurants. That's completely gone. And then he also, he had mandatory restrictions on large gatherings of 250 people or more. And he made all those mandatory restrictions voluntary. So those two items are incorporated in the current permanent ordinance we're considering. So I would suggest removing those provisions. And if you're looking at the first reading, the ordinance as it currently exists, it's paragraph 7A or section 7A and section 8 should be removed. Section 7A relates to the 11 p.m. curfew on alcohol sales. Section 8 relates to restrictions on mass gatherings. In addition, there are a bunch of references to the order the executive order that we were proceeding under previously,
Right.
which is 2020-73 from November 25th. So those references need to be changed to 2021-11, issued on March 1st, 2021. And there might be a section or two that got renumbered that I may need to fix as well. So, and you know, let me just point out, I mean, it's up to you guys, but we can keep the mass gathering language in there with making it voluntary, like the governor did, or we can just take it out completely. You know, I mean, it's a voluntary that's going to exist regardless of what we do.
Yeah, Joe, just to comment, remember we've got a PGA event in May, which would exceed, and the governor has approved, which would exceed that number no matter what we do, right?
Right.
So we don't want to place the resort in a situation where they're in violation of local law.
Right. But again, I mean, there's no state law restricting this anymore.
So Joe, let me ask you a question. In the section 8, part B, it says require the wearing of masks as a condition of admission or participation. When you say we could remove 8, it's not just the attendance portion, it's also the rest of that we could take out completely?
That is correct. I would note, however, that the governor's mask restrictions in general remain in place. And so that's going to cover any kind of, you know, public activity.
Okay.
Regardless.
So we're going to keep the mask part in?
Correct.
So
Well,
then is it
it's up to you guys, but the governor kept it in and we can keep it in.
We should keep it in.
Yeah.
So we should really just in removing any part of this, are you suggesting, Joe, that we would only remove section 8 parts A, C, and D?
No, I'm suggesting remove all of section 8 because the general mask requirements are covered under sections 2 to 5.
Okay.
Which remain in place. The governor has left them in place as mandatory. He's authorized local governments to do them. And it's going to cover everything that goes on in public, including mass gatherings. There's no need to leave any of that mass gathering language in.
Okay.
You follow me?
Yes.
Okay.
So, so then if I want to make a motion for an amendment, I can say, I move that we remove section 7A, all of section 8, and make the reference to the governor's order read 2021-11, issued March 1st, 2021, to be in compliance with the order he released late last night.
To update all the references to the
And to update all the references.
appropriate executive orders.
Okay.
So I'll second that motion.
So we take the
Motion to
amended.
amend.
Okay.
That was a motion to amend, right?
Motion to amend, and we
Yeah.
take that first.
Correct.
Okay. So is there any further discussion relative to John's amendment?
No, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now the original, we don't,
Yes, we do. We need to vote. Now we're back to the ordinance as amended.
but that was the second reading. Now what happens to this still constitutes the second reading?
No, we just amended it,
Just amended it. Okay.
right? So now we have an amended ordinance on second reading
Okay.
to approve for second reading, the whole thing. It gets, I know it gets confusing. It gets overlooked sometimes, but yeah, you have to vote on the amended
Could I have a
ordinance.
motion to approve?
I so
So
move.
moved. Second.
Second. All in, any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well,
We got through that.
Works.
the next four are all under the consent approval. We dealt with all of these at the Ways and Means Committee.
Yes.
So unless any disagreement, could I have a motion to approve under item 6A, B, C, and D?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion on any of the four?
I just, because I was unable to attend Ways and Means, I just want some clarification about in the Kimberly Horn agreement, why it is that they teased out the intersection of Beach Walker Drive and the Parkway as a separate optional event, and as opposed to that all being included in just the entire scope.
The reason why was that was the original contract that we had prior to this
Okay.
council. And we just, at that time, they wanted to see what that cost would be. So I had them single that out.
Okay, that was my only question, is why had it been teased out?
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Tab 11. Stephanie?
Sure.
Yes, Stephanie
Okay.
Braswell is going to
Okay.
present.
You want to talk about that, please?
Yes, sir. So what you guys have in your packet is request for a conceptual approval of the town consulting with a brand standards consultant in preparation for the website redesign project. And, while we've been drafting the RFP to put out, one of the obstacles that we ran into last time was not having the town itself in general, not having an actual agreed upon brand standard packet that includes visual identity and parameters around color palettes and style guides and typography and things of that nature, which I'm sure some of you are aware of, since the community association just went through something recently very similar. And so what I thought would be probably in the town's best interest is for us to take a step back while we're in the drafting of the RFP and consult with one of the firms that is very familiar with Kiowa and kind of go through and establish that. so that we're able to hand over a document that a website redesign firm would be able to seamlessly create a product that we will be able to use for our present and future needs. So what you have before you is their proposal. And so what we would like is for town council to approve the concept to take a contract to Ways and Means.
Okay.
Did you guys have any questions about that and what all that consists of, or the process?
Do you want me to make a motion first? Does that help?
Yes.
Yes.
So I move that we recommend this to Ways and Means for consideration.
Second.
Okay.
Our discussion. So, Steph, it sounds like what you're saying is let's stay back and build a little bit of a foundation before we start designing a website, and we're concerned about some of the elements, right?
That's correct. And the town being the municipal organization, we kind of have gone through the process of adopting the Kiowa script. We have our old seal logo. So there's some disconnect kind of where our consistency and how we use our logos, and we don't have an official color palette and things of that nature. So I think a foundational step here would actually benefit us in the long run, just as an organization, but also in our project.
Stephanie, this is really a sound recommendation, and I've gone through these a number of times in my own, but do you have an entity, a group, a committee who they'll come up with something and they'll change the logo, they'll suggest the logo or colors or anything? That's a big responsibility for this austere group here to be saying that's what we're going to go with. But will you have some filters that you can talk to people about and get some feedback relative to what they're going to be recommending?
So the firm itself, I would say, is highly qualified when they have they are experts in the industry. They're very well known. They have a high profile in the branding industry, as well as they are very well acclimated with Kiowa and the Kiowa brand standards just across the board. And they actually do Legends magazine, and so they just have a strong foundational understanding of Kiowa and what we expect. And so I think we're going to hit the ground running with them, more so than you might think. We wouldn't be starting from scratch, I don't think, and having to educate someone on who Kiowa is and what we represent and our target market and things like that. I have a communications work group that I work with that has representatives from the community, their residents, that I kind of use as a sounding board for my communications guidelines and what I need to work on, and they give me feedback on prior and the prior quarters communications and things of that nature. So I definitely have some feedback, but I'm happy to open any suggestions if you guys, and obviously I'll bring back to you what we work on for you to kind of watch the process unfold, and then you can have input and approval.
Stephanie, is it your vision going forward that once we have a defined color palette, approved fonts, logos and script and whatnot, that anything that anybody wants to put out would have to go through your communications group for approve, just to make sure that they're adhering to the brand's manual, the standards manual?
Yes. So ideally, we would implement that across the board. And so any communications that went out, or any kind of advertising material or anything that would pass through the town, would have a certain look and feel to it. And that would include even just staff, staff presentations and staff, maybe signatures and their emails and things of that nature, so that we are consistently representing the town in a manner that we've all agreed upon.
But in a shorter term view, that one of the purposes of this contractual arrangement would be so that when we issue an RFP or whatever we are going to call it, it'll have this in there as the standards that all of the bidders will have to meet.
That's correct.
I would also think
we won't
that
waste time trying to figure out what kind of colors we want to use on the website. What are things that can kind of stand the test of time, because we have already established that in this project.
Can I add one thing to that, Stephanie? When we worked with Cobblestone, and the reason why we're bringing this forward is that I can remember sitting at the old town hall in the conference room, and because we had no official palette, we sat there and looked at so many variations of what our website should look at, and we finally came up with the version you see, which some people will say is more like a Tex-Mex version. But because we didn't have that point of reference, we just kind of, said what looks good to us. And
Yeah.
so what Stephanie is trying to do, and also what will help the process, as she said, is that whoever bids on it, we will already have that to hand over to them. So we don't have to spend almost probably a week trying to figure out what looks best. And then we really didn't hit the market or hit the target on that.
Yeah, and it really kind of keeps, especially on the designer side, they can't take so many liberties, right? Because we've already established for them what that is and what we would like to see. So it just takes a lot of the liberties that they might take as designers out of it because we've already established that for them.
Well, the other advantages I see is because of their familiarity with Kiowa and the other images, including what you see in Legends magazine, the way it looks and feels, we won't be running headlong into our neighbors and friends who are trying to also support Kiowa, the partners, the resort, everybody else. So I think that's a smart idea.
Very sound.
And the other thing I wanted to point out is that, the average life cycle of a website is, they say, the industry says 3 to 5 years. Well, to me, if you come up with something that is able to stand the test of this time, we don't have to do that as often because we will do it the right way the first time. And I believe it can outlast that, industry timetable, which a website redesign is an expensive venture. So we want to get it right the first time.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so the motion that John had made.
Dan,
Dan,
Okay, it's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
aye.
aye.
Okay. Over this past month, we've been talking about this planning commission, Charleston County Planning Commission, that'll be coming up on March the 8th. And what role we're the immediate neighbor to the Sea Island Golf LLC, the proposed development. We'll be able to share our opinion, our thoughts on this. We thought it would be important to have something more substantive to say whatever we're going to say, that there'd be some background to it. So we conducted a survey, and that's been concluded. And I'm not sure if it's Stephanie or John who's going to walk us through this presentation, but
John would do it.
pardon me?
John
Okay.
Taylor.
But I think this is very important. We need to be representatives of the community, and carry the message forward, and as much as possible, the reasoning behind it, whatever opinion we come up with. So John, you want to walk us through your presentation or that presentation?
Sure, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. I have a few slides. Awesome. So I'm going to just give a brief summary of the proposal that's going before the Planning Commission on March 8th, and then show the results of the survey that was mentioned as you just shared, Mayor, and then hopefully just gain from you, Council, some input for next steps of staff and moving forward. Just to familiarize everyone with the particular requests, the subject property does sit adjacent to Town Hall. The municipal complex sits to the south of the subject property, and it is within unincorporated Charleston County. As you can see by this map here, it is bounded by 2 properties which sit within the town's jurisdiction. So that includes our municipal complex, as well as the Berkeley Electric substation that sits at the rear of the proposed rezoning request. Just for a few property sort of points, it's about 2.6 acres, and it's currently zone R4, single family residential. What that means is allows 4 dwelling units per acre. And the proposal that's going before Charleston County, it's for plan development, and they specified recreation, cafe, and education. The recreation component, as most of you are aware, is miniature golf, bocce ball courts, and also to include a picnic area, equipment storage, and then food sales, which includes sandwich, coffee, donuts, and pastries and ice cream. They've also added, since the September submittal of 2020, an educational use, which would focus the Walnut Hill School that's on the site. And then finally, proposed in the application is to retain the ability to use as accessory uses any of the uses outlined in the R4 zoning district. So that will be any uses permitted today. And those would include single family detached, some other community recreation, crop production, school, museum, libraries type sales. The applicant has provided in their materials that alcoholic beverages should be prohibited. The applicant is proposing 36 holes. And again, this is approximately 13,800 square foot of recreational area, including setbacks of 75 feet from Betsy Carrison, and then 10 foot on the sides and 15 at the rear. Within the application, it also talks about the buffer. What you see here, the S5 refers to a type of buffer that's within Charleston County zoning district. And so that specifies the amount of trees, the type of tree, or vegetation that would go along in that buffer. On the site, they're proposing 75 parking spaces, and also to include a 36-inch architectural wall within that buffer. Also, sidewalks. I'll show you a site plan that shows that sidewalks are to be constructed within the particular project and have access to Betsy Carrison. Here's that site plan as mentioned, where parking sits to the front of the lot, and the actual golf courses or golf area to the rear, including a 75-foot buffer at the front, bocce ball courts. The Walnut Hill School is where the check-in building, and that is proposed to be restored or refurbished or modified, adding restrooms, and that will serve as the sort of office building, if you will, for the check-in for this particular use. I pulled just a few data points that were submitted in their application as well, just to give you a frame of reference to daily counts of vehicles for this area. So about 14,800 vehicles per day is what SCDOT has outlined in their 2019 traffic counts for the station that's closest to this site. And that sits just north of Camp Care Road, before River intersection. The applicant is proposing within their materials 54 trips per day, and that's with the assumption that 27 groups at a time will be able to utilize this facility. So that means 27 cars entering and then 27 exiting. They've also included in the materials an updated count. So looking at 2020 opposed to the 2019 provided by SCDOT, that 14,800 vehicles per day increased to 16,421 vehicles per day. And I also pulled this graphic. This was a graphic shared amongst the Johns Island Task Force that kind of highlighted a little bit of the traffic volume as it pertains to average daily traffic volumes. And so that gray color shows Betsy Carrison Parkway. It's not a significant change in average daily traffic from 2019 to about 2015, but from 2015 on to 2020, 20 where we are now. You can see sort of a moderately upward tick. Definitely different from what you see in the other lines there that represent other facilities on Johns Island. So on to the survey results. There were 896 responses and 3 questions asked pretty much outside of or regarding this particular request. The first one we asked was, well, are you really familiar with the rezoning proposal? Most folks were aware. That signalized for us, hey, this had some buzz around the community already before it really got engaged in knowing the details of the project. The second question was, do you support or oppose the proposed mini golf use? It was overwhelming, approximately 90% of respondents opposed the project, and about 10% supported the use as mini golf. And that support was outlined basically to saying, hey, I would support it, but it needs to look and feel a certain type of way. So having some type of design standards attached to it. I just pulled a few graphs that shows, and this was as of Friday, February 26, these 896 respondents. Just a graph that's showing the proposed, do you support or oppose a particular use? The final question of the survey was an open-ended question. And so that question was, what issues surrounding this development of the adjacent property most concern you? From that, I put together this word cloud that sort of represents the most frequent words or phrases in that respondents' answers. And so, of course, there were a number of many comments submitted, but the most common that we found were essentially traffic-related concerns, bike and pet safety. Folks cited accidents near this particular area, stretch of Betsy Carrison. Many mentioned the travel patterns of those who bike and sometimes even walk to and from Freshfields to either Rosebank or other areas, other residential areas in along Betsy Carrison. Additionally, sort of the look and feel character of the area. That was another big point. Another big point that most folks responded to, and that would include sort of Betsy Carrison being more of a rural agriculture or a residential sort of thoroughfare corridor, opposed to a commercial corridor, as you would see Maybank Highway or other areas along Johns Island. Many property owners did reference Myrtle Beach and Hilton Head and how that differs from what Kiowa's identity and brand is. And there were a few comments that mentioned property values being impacted or the preservation of the natural environment for the area. Finally, just some comments towards potential noise and light pollution based on the design and not being sort of exactly known what that would look like. I will stop there, and then I'll maybe ask if, before I share next steps, if there were any questions on any of the survey results. Or I can share this last slide that just talks about the Planning Commission meeting. This was sent out in an e-blast today to property owners, letting them know that comments should be submitted to the county by Friday on noon. And that's just so that Charleston County Planning Commission can be aware of where residents and property owners feel about this particular submittal. The final note that I do have is just sort of a broad timeline. So after the meeting on Monday, this will go through a series of just a standard approval timeline. And so after Planning Commission, there's a public hearing that County Council will hear, and that will be in April 13th. And then it'll go through a series of readings, as the town has 2 readings, the county has 3 readings for approval. So those are all.
And John, at that first one, an asterisk should be put next to the March 8th. It only potentially can go through that process if Planning Commission makes a recommendation to approve.
Correct.
If they don't make a recommendation to approve, then the applicant can still appeal their decision and go through that process. But if they don't, it dies at the March 8th meeting, correct?
Well, it still could go through the process. It just would recommend disapproval, and most likely county council will take that planning commission's decision.
No, that's
But-
what I just said. If it's not, if planning commission denies it, the applicant can still appeal their decision and go through the process
Right.
before
So,
council,
I
or
think
they
that-
can accept planning commission's decision and it just dies at March 8th meeting,
Yeah.
if they deny it.
Yeah. So I think what you were getting at is granted, whatever decision or recommendation that planning commission has, the applicant can decide, hey, we want to stop here or we want to continue and go to county council to see if we get a favorable decision.
Got it.
That was all I had.
Two
Um,
things,
I
two
have-
items I'd like to mention before we just get into discussion. One, we're familiar with this process. A number of years ago, we went through the exact same thing, we the town, in terms of getting the change in zoning. And everything that we worked on with the planning commission, we highlighted the importance of respecting the residential nature of the community. So the way our building, the way town hall sits, the lighting, the parking, the way it's somewhat camouflaged, and everything about that was done to respect the residential nature of the community. So I'm quite familiar with that, and Stephanie will recall they put us through the hoops to make sure that we did just that, and then obviously the setback. So that's one comment I wanted to make. The second comment was on Friday, Dan and I and Stephanie had a chance to meet with Dave Morley and Jimmy Bailey. So we told them that we were having this meeting today and getting ready to have the discussion. And we told them the results of the survey and the, overwhelming opposition to this project. And I asked Dave if he could talk about it with his board, which was yesterday. Dave wrote me back last night and said that his board, the community association, would support the position that we would take in opposition of this project. So, there's not a letter in front of you right now. That is something that we will have to prepare over the next day or two to get it so that it can be read into the file on March the 8th. But we will be able to make reference to the fact of our survey and the community association at large. So just wanted to make those. Dan, you have some comments?
No, I think, John, you make the best points. I think not only does the survey support us and strongly support the town taking a position, because the town can say we have polled our community, and that's property owners as well as residents of the town. And the community association board supports this. It really, since the county is looking for what do people think, I think the town makes a great case now that it's not just our opinion, it's our residents and our guests' opinion that this just doesn't fit. So I think it's a strong case. I hope the county will listen to us.
And along those lines, John, if in what Mr. Taylor was showing, there was one section where they said that the principal uses recreation, cafe, and education. I would suggest that there's going to be virtually no education use, because if this Walnut Hill School building is going to be moved, and then the elevations are going to be the original elevations, but it's also going to be their office, their bathrooms, their storage facilities, and so forth. There's not going to be, they may have a picture or two of when it was a school, but that's the limit. So there's not really any educational use. That's one. And two, and I think this goes to what, as John, you were just describing when the town was building their building, you were talking about the sensitivity to the residential feel of the area. I think that's the appropriate way to look at it, as opposed to where we say it's incompatible with the look and feel of the Kiowa brand. It's really incompatible with the look and the feel of the residential nature of the area. I think if we stay away from that notion specifically Kiowa brand, we
Right.
probably will be better served.
Good point.
Yeah, I think the more we can stress we're a residential community, the better it is.
Yep.
I also think that it's very, very powerful that we had such a tremendous response to a survey that lasted for a week. And I think that speaks volumes about the level of intensity that is felt by the residents, the vast majority of residents who are going to be directly affected, not the people who are down on James Island or on the other side of the earth. It's the people who are going to be impacted.
And I think one thing that I've not seen in any of the material about this new facility is where he thinks his customers are going to come from. Are they going to come from Kiowa and Seabrook, or are they going to come from all over Johns Island? Because in traffic, if he's got 75 parking spaces, but he only thinks there's going to be 27 in, 27 out, then he's not expecting to pull people from a very large area. And I guess one of my concerns would be, ultimately it is additional traffic, but it's really, where is all that going to come from? And does it, I guess in a sense, still overburden the infrastructure even more? If it's only 27 people a day that go in and they all come from Kiowa guests and residents, probably traffic isn't all that big a deal. But if they're from,
nor is it a viable business model.
well, yeah, I was going to get to that. Yeah, once you get to that, 27 people aren't gonna substantiate 36 holes of miniature golf. The other thing, I think this is just nomenclature. I think we need to be careful to refer to this as miniature golf, not putt-putt, because putt-putt is a brand, and that's not what he's intending to build here. He is building a miniature golf facility. Maybe a minor point, but we need to be sure we're clear on that.
I think it's better anyhow to say miniature golf. I have a comment I'd like to make about it. John mentioned bicycle traffic, and I can see where the amount of bicycle traffic for kids would increase if this facility was built. We have people at Kiowa with children. Children would ride their bikes to go play miniature golf, which to me is a terrible idea. So I totally agree with what everyone else has said.
Stephanie,
Yes,
do
Mayor.
and Joe, which is more powerful, the discussion that we've heard and the input from the community that we've solicited in the writing of a memo and the writing of a letter rather, or a motion that would that carry more weight with the county? What I'm looking for your advice. Or
Why not a two-pronged approach?
I'll just comment and I'll let Joe comment from a
yes, it's a good point.
standpoint. So I think to have a consensus from everyone, and then to have, John has already, he already has a letter drafted, but again, the consensus that we want to support or oppose it. And then Monday, John can read the letter into record. We'll send a copy of the letter in advance. We get it done in advance. And then he will officially can read the letter or submit it depending on how long the letter is. He can officially read the letter from the mayor and council as a part of public record. In addition, we can attach our survey and all the comments with the survey. So they have all of that backup material. The only reason why, and Joe can comment on this, that we may not be officially do a vote because it was not put on the agenda as approval. It was placed on the agenda as discussion. So I don't know if they can officially vote on it, but they can do a consensus. But I'll let Joe, as our town attorney, comment on that.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Consensus.
Consensus, but not official vote. And then I also just like to comment that as part of the letter, if we do a consensus that, as you all oppose it and we draft a letter, one thing is that if the planning commission decides to move forward with the approval of this, one thing that we may want to comment that if they do approve it, I would like to see, and you all should have, well, you had the PDF, but this kind of thick, their development guides, two things that I see missing that I would like to have them included in this if it is approved by the council. is one, I would like for them to specify that if the miniature golf course closes, that the land will revert back to open space. Because so many times these miniature golf facilities fail, and then what happens? So it'd be great if they can put a stipulation that reverts back to open space. And while the owners constantly talk about hours of operation, I noticed they left that out of their guidelines. So I would love for them to put in their specific hours of operation. If the County Planning Commission decides to pass it, I would think in our letter that would be, we strongly oppose it, but if there's things that we would like for them to add in there, if they pass, I would like to get those comments in there as well. That's all, Mayor.
I think also a point, Stephanie, and recall that one of the reasons why our cut is where it's at is that falls within that 35-mile-an-hour little zone between the roundabout and then the 50-mile-an-hour zone. I think this is either at the 50 or closer to it's obviously closer to the 50.
Yeah, it's.
I drove by it this morning, and it is that 50 miles starts right where our property ends and where that property begins.
But quite frankly, they're just kidding themselves. That's a dangerous site.
Just for your information, as a resident, I have been very concerned about Bohicket. And when that accident occurred last week with another fatality, I was reading that in 2020, Bohicket Road had 80 car accidents, and many of them were fatalities. And it also had 250 incidents just on Bohicket, where the police had people speeding or problems with their car. But my point is this, that is such a dangerous road. Any additions would just be awful.
Okay. Any other comments?
So what is the process for us to have a consensus as opposed to a motion, Joe?
I think it's just making the comments that y'all are making and
Right.
having that support for the letter.
Great, and it's in all you guys' comments are in the minutes, and so based on your comments, I have the consensus is that you all oppose the rezoning request.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
We can say unanimous consensus?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let
And
us-
what we'll do, if you, Mayor, John and I will work on John mainly, what he's already worked on a draft, and I'll just add some comments. If I can shoot it to you first, if you want. Do you want me to shoot it to you first to kind of make any additional comments and shoot it to all of council before, or to shoot it to all of you guys and you can make
I'd
comments?
send it to everybody.
Okay, we'll get it to all of you guys so you can make your edits and comments, because ideally then on Monday, that's what, we get it, of course, done again. If we have it done by Friday, we'll shoot it to Joel Evans or whomever at the county, just so they have it in advance, but then we'll officially read it and present it on Monday at the meeting.
I also talked with Jordan from the partners and with Roger, as the resort, there's just opposition. And we'll have to see what happens at the 8th, but I think this community just doesn't want to see this take place for all of those reasons.
Mr. Mayor, since you said that you had spoken to the resort and the partners, did you get a sense that they are going to publicly respond to this?
They didn't say.
Okay.
I didn't ask. They didn't say. I felt that with what we had from the community association really represents the community per se, that was.
Right.
Yeah, no, I just wondered.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Stephanie, any report with town administrator?
Yes, I'll just quickly go through a few things just to bring you guys up to speed and allow you to ask any questions if you have any. So the first one is the garage facility. I have met with three of you, and then the mayor and the mayor pro tem's already aware. We are working and we'll ask LS3P to put together a proposal for conceptual layout first. We would like to do some improvements and renovations to the garage, to include adding 2 new offices, the lab and workspace, kind of finishing that off. The restroom as well needs some finishing touches, adding some additional storage and possibly looking at the outside wash area for the vehicles. So LS3P, because they're the original designers, architects for the garage and the building, we're going back to them. And so they'll be looking at putting together a proposal that will bring back to Ways and Means and ultimately to council for approval. Our landscape project on the Parkway, Brian is meeting with the contractor on Thursday. I think they're finishing up this week with irrigation. They should start planting pretty soon. The goal was to have everything completed by mid-March, maybe towards the end of March, but we'll have more of an update Thursday, and Brian will shoot an email to everyone letting you guys know for sure the timeline on that project. I don't think I commented on this since our last meeting, but as you recall, this is in regards to our deer. The previous council approved deer culling. We had 100 tags, and it was going to be accomplished in the winter. It was completed last month. We did not receive any calls or any incident occurred, and so we were able to tag 100 deer. They've been sent off to the processor as a requirement of DHEC. We have to donate the meat. I believe Jim is probably still waiting, but as I was going through some minutes today, I recall that he said that it should generate about 12,000 meals. So we'll see if that number still holds true. But we are done with that process. We may have to come, we'll look at it again for this fall, but we did 100 deer. With that, I believe, and I had a senior staff meeting today, and Jim, I believe, said that we were able to collar 5 bobcats, which is great. But we're still having things, we're still testing for SGAs. We're still finding some SGAs in other animals that die, and we send them off for testing. So we are still vigilant in regards to SGAs and what we need to do to try to keep that in the forefront and keep that on the minds of everyone. And then last, of course, you guys, yes.
Any litters pending? I mean, any little bobcats?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And we're hoping that, the 5 that we collared, that they don't die from SGAs, so we're being hopeful. And last, at our last, I believe Ways and Means meeting, we kicked off the budget process. So that has started. We did the revenues, and the next meeting we have will be reviewing the expense side of things. So we are humming right along. That's all I have to report. Any questions on anything I just discussed, the 5 items? Yes, John. John.
Not raised. You raised your hand first, Scott.
You can go ahead.
Sorry, I just saw his hand.
So on the SGA, are we still actively talking to the non-conforming pest companies about signing the agreement, or did we get a surge at first and we kind of letting it take its natural course now? I guess.
I think that we've gotten a surge and we've let it take its natural course. We are still working with Clemson. Jim did say that we are trying to put together a research program with a PhD student, and he thinks that's going to be a go, and he'll have more information on that. But, and we have, the mayor had penned a letter to Senator Campson. We did send that off in hopes that he would then take that letter, which essentially outlined what we've done today. Have done to date in a timeline fashion. And then in the end, we ultimately had kind of a soft pitch, but we did say that, we will at some point, we have to reconsider a moratorium. That would be ideal, but he was then going to attach a cover letter, and then he was going to reach out to Clemson. He has sort of been our, as a senator, we're hoping that him reaching out to Clemson, there's a little bit more push and clout behind that than just the town. But as of right now, we haven't heard anything back from Senator Kempson's office.
Should we possibly look at maybe another shot at the non-conforming pest control companies to see if we can get, half of the remainder to sign up?
Sure, we can send out another blast. Clemson has done an anonymous kind of survey. Is that what it was, Mayor? Where they have reached out to all the pest control companies and asked them a number of questions. But again, we did not receive the survey results. We don't know who actually commented. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, council member, we could definitely, I can talk with Stephanie and Jim, and we can try, we can revive that Bobcat Guardian program and resend it out to see if we would get another push. But we also, hopefully encourage homeowners to say to the pest control companies, hey, what are you using? But what we're hearing from Clemson, I don't know if this is true or not, but they have said that they think some of the real issue stems from the property management companies, where they're managing a home and they just see one rat and they just want to get rid of it, and they just contact the pest control company and say, hey, get rid of it. So they feel like the problem may not be coming so much from full-time residents who get it, but maybe those property management companies that are just managing properties, and they're just trying to, that's the quickest way to get rid of a rodent. So, but we can definitely do another push to property management companies and to pest control companies, because pest control companies, of course, they are going to, some of them will push to use other methods, but then ultimately it's the client's decision.
Right.
Of course, we know that.
Okay.
Scott, you had a question?
I just have a follow-up question for Stephanie. At the retreat, you mentioned that you were going to be looking to find a home for the fine dollars that occurred through the emergency ordinance fines to a local charity. I wondered if you had identified that yet.
I have not identified. If you all know of any, I know Dr. Parker, you have mentioned, and they do, Barrier Island Free Medical Clinic, they have to hospitality. But if any of you have any other suggestions, please send them my way. I have asked Dorota to give me the final number, so I'll get that from her. I have not, I'm sorry, I did not get that number from her. But if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. And then if you'd like, I can finalize that by next week, because we still, of course, have the money. So we just need to go ahead and release the dollars to someone.
After that's concluded, will we then say we've met our commitment?
Because we won't have the money. We can definitely say that.
Stephanie, if you know, with these bobcats tagged, or Scott, do they do blood samples? Would they do a liver biopsy? Could they determine on a live bobcat the presence of SGA?
I believe they can, but I wouldn't want to be quoted, but I believe that they can do some blood analysis on them. The other thought I had about bobcats that occurred to me while I was in the Bahamas is I remember, if I vaguely remember, that Jim had found a dead screech owl that had SGAs in it. I wondered if we had any other raptors who had been identified, because we have bald eagles on our island. And, I wondered if we could make a play that says, we've got bald eagles and they are being endangered because we've got proxy proof that other raptors and predators are being affected, not just the bobcats, and expand the scope of, what we're concerned about, because it is every animal on this island.
That's correct. That's a good point, Dr. Parker. And so what I'll do is I will talk with Jim on all those and ask the question, Mayor, because I'm not sure. I know that we can, I just don't know if we're doing it in terms of testing. Once we collar a bobcat, if we're testing them. So I'll have to.
Is this reversible in any way? I mean, this is that, what, no?
I mean, it just has to wear out of its system.
But
Yeah,
can it?
it's got a decay curve that lasts almost a year. And so you could stop doing SGAs today. Or, you could have done them 6 months ago. And if you test, you're still going to find levels of SGA. So it's hard to say somebody's in compliance or not in compliance because they've got such a long half-life.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Stephanie? Committee updates?
I
I'll
have-
mention-
Committee updates?
Go ahead, Marianne.
Marianne?
Yes, Stephanie and I are working on our emergency management response time for ambulance and fire and rescue. We have a police deputy chief that we're working with who's been assigned to Kiowa to resolve this issue. It's been going on and off for 3 years. The response time goes from pretty good to not acceptable. So I'm encouraged that we will finally have a solution in the next few months. At least I am thinking that way. The next thing is the emergency management plans. I've been looking through that and I intend to meet with Stephanie to go over some questions I have about that. And then also we're looking at the leash law. There've been some complaints about dogs jumping on residents at the beach, and it's time to look at that and see if we need to make any modifications. That would be it for me.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing. I don't know if everyone knows that 55 and up now can get the vaccination.
That's starting Monday,
Monday the 8th.
starting Monday.
Yeah.
The governor announced it today.
Yeah, it starts Monday.
Good. Dan, any?
Yeah, just a couple of things. The mayor has already talked a little bit about this, but as you know, it's one of his priorities to get our profile on roads higher maybe than it's been, or at least add to it. There's a Johns Island Task Force meeting on tomorrow, actually, that I'll be attending. John Taylor has been a regular attendee. I will start attending those regularly as well to raise our profile with that group, and they will be of some use to us, not all, but he already mentioned the meeting with Seabrook on Friday, which is critical. If we can get Seabrook behind us as well, we're a little bit more potent politically. Finally, I want to mention I will also start attending the CHATS meeting, which is the Charleston Area Transportation Study Group. They've got a meeting on Monday, so we will be busy on roads, my guess is, for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're busy. Yeah, good. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
I have just a
Welcome back.
thanks. I have just a quick update about water management, essentially. I met last Tuesday with Lucas Hernandez, the resiliency specialist over at Kika, who's working on the adaptive management plan. And he right now is still on track to come and give us a presentation in April in terms of various thresholds, high-level thresholds, and then also specific Kiowa thresholds. Now, that timeline is dependent upon him being able to meet with a number of stakeholders who he's been connecting with, has had some trouble connecting with some others. Stephanie Tillerson has been very helpful in facilitating his interactions with the utilities, but that is coming along very, very nicely. And he also informed me that there is a emergency coastal resiliency fund grant that is quite sizable, that is looking at ways in which we can add green infrastructure to help manage stormwater management, both in terms of rain gardens and erosion swales and various things like that. So that's just a little update on the progress that's going on water management.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. John?
Not really. We've kind of talked about the public works issues and planning issues. So,
Okay. Joe, anything? Anybody else out there?
No, sir.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
can
ma'am.
just give an update, Jim Jordan did message me in that out of the 5 Bobcats, he did test them and 3 out of the 5 came back negative for SGAs.
Yay.
But 2 didn't. 2 tested positive?
He just said 3 came back negative, so I'm guessing the 2 must have tested positive.
So we would,
Or he's waiting on the test to come back. He could be just waiting on the test to come back.
but now knowing what Scott described, they could test positive that they have traces, but the trace may not be.
Lethal enough.
may be in their
to-
system,
Yeah.
may not be lethal.
Yeah. All right.
Citizen comments.
I have no additional comments from citizens, Mayor.
Okay, and they would be coming to you, correct?
They will email me or Petra or Stephanie, but I haven't seen any forwarded to me. So no comments.
Okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very, very much. We will get that letter out to you and